I gave it to Ashley. She deserves it more than you. Margaret's voice dripped with satisfaction through my phone. After all, she's my actual daughter. My hand trembled as I stared at my empty jewelry box, the velvet indent where my grandmother's vintage sapphire ring had rested for the past 5 years now painfully bare. I'm Victoria Bennett, 32, and my mother-in-law had just crossed the line she couldn't come back from. You went into my bedroom and took my grandmother's ring. I kept my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. That ring is worth $250,000, Margaret. It's not yours to give away. Oh, please, she scoffed. Your grandmother's ring? We both know James bought that for you. And since he's my son, I have every right to give family heirlooms to my daughter. Ashley's wedding is in 3 months, and she deserves something special. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. Margaret had never accepted me even after 7 years of marriage to her precious son James. In her eyes, I was the gold digger who'd stolen her boy away from the life she'd planned for him. She never missed an opportunity to remind me that Ashley, my sister-in-law, was more worthy of being part of their family. What Margaret didn't know, what only James and I knew, was that the ring truly had belonged to my grandmother. It was her most prized possession, a rare Ceylon sapphire passed down through generations. She'd given it to me on her deathbed, making me promise to keep it in the family. Margaret, that ring has a certificate of authenticity and a documented history. It's not just jewelry, it's my family's legacy. I tried to reason with her, though I knew it was pointless. She laughed, the sound grating through the phone. Legacy? Your family? Don't make me laugh, Victoria. Everyone knows your family was nothing before James. Besides, Ashley's already taken it to get fitted at Carmichael's. There's nothing you can do about it now. My heart stopped. Carmichael's, the high-end jeweler where my grandmother had maintained her collection for decades, where Mr. Carmichael himself had personally handled the ring's documentation and knew its entire history. You sent Ashley to Carmichael's? I couldn't help but smile, though Margaret couldn't see it. Of course, only the best for my daughter. She's there now, having it sized. Unlike you, she has delicate hands worthy of such a beautiful piece. I checked the time, 2:15 p.m. Mr. Carmichael would be at the shop now, doing his afternoon appointments. Thank you for letting me know, Margaret. You've been very helpful. What's that supposed to? I hung up before she could finish. My hands were steady now as I dialed the familiar number of Carmichael's. The receptionist recognized my name immediately. Being the granddaughter of one of their most valued clients had its perks. Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Carmichael was just about to call you. He's with a young lady claiming to be your sister-in-law. About the Ceylon sapphire? Yes, Amanda. Could you put him through? It's rather urgent. A moment later, Mr. Carmichael's warm voice filled the line. Victoria, my dear, I have quite a situation here. I know, Mr. Carmichael. My mother-in-law took the ring from my jewelry box and gave it to her daughter. She's trying to pass it off as a family heirloom from their side. Ah, he said, understanding filling his voice. That explains the young lady's confusion when I asked about the certificate of authenticity and the ring's history. She seems quite insistent that it belongs to her family, but of course I have the complete documentation of provenance right here in front of me. In the background, I could hear Ashley's voice rising in protest. Would you like me to explain the ring's true history to them? He asked, professional as ever but with a hint of satisfaction. Mr. Carmichael had known my grandmother for 40 years. He took the integrity of fine jewelry very seriously. Yes, please. And Mr. Carmichael? My husband should be there in about 10 minutes. He was closer to the shop when I called him. Excellent. I believe the situation will be resolved quite definitively then. I hung up and sank into my chair, the adrenaline finally catching up with me. 7 years of Margaret's subtle jabs, her constant attempts to undermine my marriage, her clear favoritism of Ashley. It had all led to this moment of overreach. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Almost there. Mom's blowing up my phone. Did she really break into our bedroom? I replied with a simple yes. Mr. Carmichael has the security footage from Grandma's last visit when she documented the ring's transfer to me. James' response was immediate. Time for Mom to finally face consequences. I smiled, thinking of Margaret's face when she realized just how thoroughly her plan was about to backfire. The ring wasn't just valuable. It was documented, certified, and legally mine. More importantly, her actions have finally pushed James past his breaking point. My phone started ringing again. Margaret's number. I let it go to voicemail, knowing that the real show was about to begin at Carmichael's. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's letting people's own actions expose their true nature. The events at Carmichael's unfolded exactly as I'd expected. James called me on his drive home, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You should have seen Mom's face when she burst into the shop," he said. She was all righteous indignation, demanding to know why Ashley was being harassed about the ring's documentation. Then Mr. Carmichael pulled out the certified papers. I could picture the scene perfectly. How did she react? First, she tried claiming your grandmother must have bought the ring recently, that it couldn't be a real family heirloom. That's when Mr. Carmichael played the security footage from 5 years ago. I smiled, remembering that day. My grandmother, elegant even in her final months, had insisted on properly documenting the ring's transfer. "The documentation is critical, Victoria," she'd said. "Fine jewelry comes with fine responsibilities." Then what happened? I asked, though I could guess. Mr. Carmichael showed them the ring's complete history. Photos, certificates, insurance documents, everything. Mom started to deflate, but Ashley lost it. She started crying about how her wedding was ruined and how I always chose you over family. "And what did you say?" There was a pause, and I could hear the weight in James's voice. "I told them both that you are my family, that breaking into our bedroom and stealing your inheritance was unforgivable." Mom tried to interrupt, saying she was just trying to make things fair, to give Ashley something special. "Let me guess, she didn't think there was anything wrong with taking it?" "Oh, it gets better," James said, his tone bitter. "She actually said, 'It's not stealing if it's family.'" That's when Mr. Carmichael mentioned he was legally obligated to report jewelry theft over $100,000. I sat up straighter. He didn't. He did. Very politely explained that while he preferred to handle this as a family matter, he had ethical obligations as a certified jeweler. Mom's face turned white so fast I thought she might faint. The image was satisfying, but I felt a twinge of worry. How did Ashley take it? She handed over the ring immediately, suddenly very interested in not being part of the situation. She started saying she had no idea it was actually your grandmother's, that Mom had told her it was a family piece James had given me. That tracked with what I knew of Ashley. She was spoiled and entitled, yes, but not usually malicious. That came from Margaret. The best part, James continued, was when Mr. Carmichael brought out a second set of documents, photographs of Mom's own engagement ring, which she sold 20 years ago. Turns out that was the actual family heirloom she should have been worried about. I gasped. "What?" "Yeah, apparently she sold my grandmother's engagement ring back when Dad was sick. Never told anyone. She's been wearing a replica all these years, pretending it was the original. Mr. Carmichael recognized it as soon as she came in today because he'd handled the sale." The irony was almost too perfect. Margaret, who'd spent years accusing me of being a gold digger, had secretly sold her own family's heirloom. How did Ashley react to that? She left, just grabbed her purse and walked out. Mom tried to follow her, but Ashley told her to stay away. I think finding out about Grandma's ring was the last straw. I could hear the pain in James's voice. For all their faults, this was still his family falling apart. "I'm sorry it came to this," I said softly. "Don't be, Mom's been pushing boundaries for years. She needed to face consequences eventually." He paused. "Mr. Carmichael's keeping the ring in the vault for now. He suggested having it professionally cleaned and inspected, just to be safe." Good idea. I twisted my wedding band, thinking, what happens now? Now Mom has to deal with the fact that everyone knows what she did, both today and 20 years ago. Dad's going to be devastated about her selling Grandma's ring. And Ashley's going to have to find something else to wear at her wedding. After we hung up, I sat in our quiet house, processing everything. Margaret had finally overplayed her hand, and the consequences were spreading beyond just the ring. Years of manipulation and lies were unraveling, all because she couldn't resist one final power play. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. "I'm so sorry. I really didn't know it was your grandmother's ring." Mom said, "Well, it doesn't matter what she said. I should have asked James directly." I stared at the message, considering my response. Ashley had been cruel over the years, but always following Margaret's lead. Maybe this was a chance for change. Would you like to have coffee tomorrow? I texted back. Just us? Her response was immediate. Yes, please. There's a lot I need to say. Another message popped up, this one from Margaret. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won out. Inside was a single line. I was only trying to make things right for my daughter. I thought of my grandmother, of her insistence on documentation, on doing things properly, of her final words to me. Take care of the ring, Victoria. It's not just about the jewelry, it's about knowing what matters and protecting it. I looked at Margaret's message again and typed a response. No, you were trying to take something that didn't belong to you. The consequences are yours to bear. Then I blocked her number, stood up, and went to make dinner. James would be home soon, and we had a lot to talk about. 3 months later, I sat in a small cafe, waiting for Ashley's arrival. Today was supposed to be her wedding day. Instead, she postponed it indefinitely after everything that happened with Margaret. The bell above the door chimed, and Ashley walked in, looking different from the polished, perfect image she usually maintained. Her hair was in a casual ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Especially today. How are you holding up? I asked, genuinely curious. She gave a small laugh. Better than I expected, actually. Tom and I are still together, but we're taking things slower. Turns out a lot of the rush to get married was Mom's pressure, not what we wanted. The waiter brought our coffees, and we sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The past 3 months had changed a lot of things in our family. Dad's selling the house, Ashley said suddenly. After finding out about Grandma's ring, he started digging into their finances. Turns out Mom's been hiding a lot more than just jewelry sales. I nodded. James had told me about the secret credit cards, the gambling debts, the systematic draining of their retirement accounts. Margaret's theft of my ring had opened a Pandora's box of financial deceit. How's your dad doing? Better now that he's taken control of everything. He's staying with Uncle Mike while the divorce proceedings go through. She stirred her coffee absently. Mom's not handling it well. She keeps saying everyone's abandoned her, that she was just trying to give me the wedding she never had. And what do you think about that? Ashley met my eyes directly. I think she's been lying to herself for so long, she doesn't know how to stop. The ring was just the final straw. Finding out she'd sold Grandma's engagement ring, she shook her head. That changed everything for Dad. I thought about James's father, a quiet man who'd always seemed overshadowed by Margaret's personality. Learning of the sale of his mother's ring had awakened something in him. Have you heard from her lately? I asked. She's staying with her sister in Florida. Sends me daily texts about how we're all going to regret treating her this way. Ashley sighed. The funny thing is, postponing the wedding was the best thing that could have happened. Tom and I are actually talking about what we want, not what Mom thinks we should have. The cafe was filling up with a lunch crowd, the buzz of conversation around us creating a cocoon of privacy. Victoria, Ashley said, her voice serious. I really am sorry, not just about the ring, but for everything. The way I treated you, the things I said. I was following Mom's lead, but that's no excuse. Thank you, I said simply. That means a lot. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. I found this in Mom's things when we were cleaning out the house. I think you should have it. Inside was a worn velvet jewelry box. When I opened it, I found old photographs. My grandmother, at various ages, always wearing the sapphire ring. Mom must have taken these from your jewelry box when she took the ring. There's a letter, too, from your grandmother. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the yellowed paper. My grandmother's elegant handwriting filled the page, detailing the ring's history, the women who had worn it, and their stories of love and resilience. Keep these safe for me, Ashley said softly. Maybe someday you'll share them with your own daughter. When I got home that evening, James was in the kitchen making dinner. The ring, now cleaned and secured, sat in its new home, a wall safe we'd installed after the incident. How was coffee with Ashley? He asked, stirring something that smelled delicious. Good, really good actually. She's changed a lot since everything happened. I showed him the box of photographs. He looked through them carefully. Mom tried to erase your family's history, but she ended up exposing her own lies instead. Sometimes people's worst actions bring out the best in others, I said, thinking of how this crisis had strengthened some family bonds while breaking others. James pulled me close. Mom called again today. Left a voicemail saying she's changed, that she wants to make amends. And what do you think? I think actions speak louder than words. She's had years to choose differently, to treat you with respect. One crisis doesn't change who she is. I nodded, leaning into his embrace. The ring was more than just jewelry. It had become a catalyst for truth, forcing long-buried secrets and resentments into the light. Your grandmother would be proud, James said, kissing my forehead. Not just of how you protected the ring, but of how you handled everything after. Looking at the photographs spread across our kitchen counter, I saw generations of women who had worn the sapphire ring, each adding their own story to its legacy. Margaret had tried to steal that history, but in doing so, she only proved why she was never meant to be part of it. Sometimes the most valuable things we inherit aren't the ones that can be stolen. They're the strength, wisdom, and grace passed down through generations. No one could take that away, not even Margaret.